Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Chess Advance. And now that the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz has been commended, now we are going to actually go ahead with the series of all the Olympiad games. I've already shown the games of one gold. Uh, Gold medal achiever, which is Divya Deshmukh. I mean, she played spectacular chess, scoring 9.5 out of 11. I've shown her all of her games, except I think the one game that she drew. And this is another one of such games for not from Divya Deshmukh, but from the men's side. This is from Gukesh, and this is India against China. Definitely one of the really toughest opponents you're going to be facing, and all the other games had been drawn. So Gukesh's games, this game had to be the deciding factor between if India is going to win the gold medal or not. So this is an amazing game, and definitely Gukesh. I mean, everyone must know by now. Gukesh scored 9 out of 10 in Olympiad. So let's see how he does it. So without further ado, let's start with this game. With the white pieces, Gukesh starts with e4. We have c5 going for the Sicilian. We have knight to f3, d6, but just knight to c3 going for the Sicilian defense, but a little bit different way. We have knight to f6, bishop to e2, e5, but now just going for this d3. We are just transposing, and we have bishop to e7, d3, and now just going for knight to c6. Definitely, this is coming all from Gukesh's preparations. Castles, now bishop captures, knight to d5, and bishop to e6, queen to d2. You could also go for a line with bishop captures, and here after bishop captures, knight to d4, trading everything. And most likely this bishop will be very strong throughout the rest of the game, and this bishop could be a little bit weak, but it's a trade-off that you have to deal with. And somewhere along the line, maybe you'll just get the rooks into the game, just challenge the central pawn that is over advanced a little bit. And maybe in some lines, maybe play f4 as well. It weakens the king side a little bit, I know, but that's the best. But here after queen to d2, you can go for this a6, but that was a quick draw. The game could have been drawn at any end of there. So trading in the center is not generally considered good. So here after castles, we have b5, just pushing the bishop back. Obviously you cannot push it here because don't have any support for that. So king to h8, a nice prophylactic move, but just a3. Rook to b8, but just h3, just not allowing any of the bishops to be jump into the position. We have g6, and now just going for c3. Gukesh is preparing for a central thrust, and we have bishop back to g7, bishop to a2, f5, immediately going for it, because if you give Gukesh a bit too much in this position, he will eventually take it and he will beat you. A knight to g5 was played, just attacking the bishop, and bishop goes all the way back to g8. So these bishops, well, not doing that much, but again, they're holding the position. So maybe in the future you could reroute them. We have e captures by Gukesh, g captures, f4, a beautiful move in this position. F4, trying to ask Wei Yi that this move doesn't lose that much for me, but it just asks you a question that how are you going to develop your pieces, how are you going to develop the bishop, how are you going to get the knight into the game, how are you going to connect the rooks and get the queen to the optimum square, because that just defends my knight, and my knight is on a spectacular square. And here we have c4 in this position, but now just d captures, b captures, bishop caps on c3, and I think bishop caps on c4. And you have to understand that there is a lot of pressure against these bishops, and yes, these knights are doing a very fine job of staying there, but here this bishop on d5 is, well, very annoying, to be honest, for black. So I think it would have been better if you just remove the defender of the bishop by going for a move like knight to a5. Like, it makes sense, right? So here after bishop moves back to a2, now you play a move like knight to b3 with an attack, double attack. So you have to give the bishop up. So after bishop captures, rook captures, most likely rook f to d1, but after just doubling up, putting some pressure, you just play this. And black's position is absolutely fine here, even with these two bishops. Yes, the knight can jump in, but it won't have anything. I mean, you could just reroute the bishop anywhere you like, maybe just go here as well. But then again, you have to be again careful with knights. That is always tricky. So position is absolutely fine for black, and I think black could be pushing really well in this position. But here after bishop captures, we have e captures, and e captures is not a good move here. Knight back to f3 was played, and this just looks ugly. Your king looks weak even after having this boxed in kind of setup. This bishop looks amazing, knight can jump it at any time, and you have to understand whenever the queen moves, queen won't be that free. You have to always be careful about this diagonal, because knight is jumping in whichever way. Here knight to a5 was played up, but it comes a bit too late, because you weakened the king side. Now you play over the side of the board. That's not the way to play chess. Bishop to a2, knight to b3, bishop captures, and just rook captures. And now finally going for the line that I showed you, but if it had happened a few moves too early, black would be actually better, but it's now white who's the one who's pushing. It doesn't make sense giving up the bishop for the central knight, because you have to understand, yes, you win a pawn, but it's not about the pawns in this position. Just try and understand that the position is not good for you. You have messed up. That bishop is acting as a very nice defender. These two knights will be absolute monsters. If you exchange one, this knight is coming. If you don't do anything, knight can also jump to d4. You'll have trouble with defending all these pawns, and then your king. So position is looking very very bad. In knight captures on f4 was played by Gukesh, and we have queen to b6, but now just going for this rook to f2, defending everything. Rook to b8, now just going for this rook to b1, targeting not not pawns, but targeting for going for activity. And here we have rook captures, queen captures, queen captures, and now just going for rook captures, rook captures, rook captures on d6, and now just a5. We have rook to d8, bishop caps on c3, just grabbing another pawn, and might seem like Ukesh is heading towards a draw. And if all the games had drawn, it would be fine, because I think it would be two for two, and it would have been okay. But I think Gukesh knows how to push for a win. You have to understand, two knights against a two bishop in an open position like this, bishops are supposed to be better. But if you do a blunder, I mean, they are not going to be better. Here knight to d5 was played, but now just comes this rook to b1. We have king to f2, rook to d1, and a very very fine move by Gukesh in this position. He goes and tries to mix it up. He goes for rook captures on g8, and that's a spectacular move by the world champion, simply because of the fact, because in the end game you'll have two knights for a rook. Yes, you have just three pawns in the position, but again, you have to understand that it could go anyone's way. Knights are always tricky to deal with end games, because it can go a lot of folks. I mean, a lot of sacrifices, two pieces, it's always better. And here king captures, knight caps on c3 was played, and this is just not looking good for Wei Yi. Here rook to c1 was played, knight to b5, and just rook to c2, king to f1, king to f7, knight f to d4, and you can see that those knights are going to be protecting themselves. Also, that pawn is protected. You cannot touch those knights, and all you have to do is just push a little bit. Both players are just very much down on the clock here. Wei Yi is some 36 seconds on the clock, while Gukesh is having a little above 3 minutes. Here rook to c1 check was played, but king comes into the game. King to f6, knight to d6, and now just going for this rook to c3, just cutting off the king from actually entering. This pawn is also threatened, so you have to be careful about that. Knight 6 to b5, again just attacking that rook, but now just comes this rook to c1, king to e3, rook to g1, and now just king to f2, attacking the rook to c1, and it is a grind. I'm sorry, but I have to show the entire game. I cannot just skip through all the moves, because you have to understand what really happened. It is a grind. It is like some more 30 moves long, and we're going to see some maybe just not that perfect moves, but you have to understand both players have reached time control, and they have some time. So, they're going to playing it all day long, and with the two knights, you can actually play it all day long. A knight to e2, rook to b1, but just knight b to c3, rook to b3, we have a4, but now just comes this king to e5, g3. Slowly but steadily, Gukesh is trying to make progress. He has to win it for India, and he understands why it's really really important. Rook to b6, king to e3, but now just rook to b4, still cutting off the king. If you allow king to enter into the position, the game is as good as lost. King to d3, but now just h6, king to e3, rook to b3, and just king to d3. Yes, both players are still waiting and seeing if the other player makes a mistake. Rook to b4 again, but now just knight to g1. Gukesh is not accepting a draw. He knows that he has to win it for India, and I think that's the mindset. That's why you need to be every time ambitious, and his ambitiousness is what got him the world championship title as well. Rook to b8, knight to f3 check, king to f6, rook, knight to d4, and just rook to d8. Just spinning that knight. I mean, it's okay, there's no issues in the position. King to e3, but just going for this rook to c8, knight, king to d3, rook to d8, knight to e2, rook to b8, but just knight to f4. Slowly but surely, Gukesh is trying to get the knight to the optimum squares, target these pawns, and these isolated pawns are going to be very much difficult to defend with those two knights. Rook to b1, but just knight to d5 check, king to e5, and just knight to c3. Again, you could always go and always go there and just defend the other knight, and that's the beauty of two knights in the end game. It's just you could be having the best position in the world, but still two knights are always going to overpower. Rook to h1, knight to f3 check, king to d6, and just h4, just pushing it all the way. Rook to h3, just going for the pawn, but now just comes this knight to e2, defending it very very nicely. And now we have f4, finally going for something in this position, but just knight f2 g1, and everything is defended. Now here he goes for this attacking the knight, but there's nothing in this position. G captures was played, rook captures, and now just going for this knight to f3, attacking the rook moves, and just f5, pushing the finally going for the pass pawn. And even if you could reach further points, you could even sacrifice the knight for this pass pawn, and you could promote if it comes to that. Obviously it's not coming to that, but still, but you have to play it very precisely. Here h5, knight to c3, h4, knight to e4 check, king to d7, and knight to e5, slowly getting the knights there, and now just going for it all the way. King to d8, f6, and now in this position I'm going to ask you one thing: how do you actually stop the pawn from promoting? Because this pawn is looking like it's very very strong. this square is covered by the knight, this square is covered by the pawn. Do you go here and maybe allow this and go here? I mean, you have to understand that looks very, very scary, because any check from the knight along these squares, or along any other squares, then you have to understand that you will be losing this game, and that will take, I think, just two moves and you'll be lost. So how do you actually go? You can go here and here, and that will be game over. So how do you actually try and try and draw this game with black? I think there is just one move. So I'm gonna ask you to pause the video and try and find out this move. The move is actually rook to d1 check, and now the idea is king to e2, and now you go rook to d5. This is the only move that saves the game. There is no other move in this position that saves the game. f7. Now if you try to push, giving this up, this will come with a queen on the board, so obviously you cannot do that. So king to e7, but now this comes this knight to f3, and now just exchanging this pawn for that pawn, not pushing it all the way. Rook captures, knight captures, rook to d4, but now a very beautiful tactic, king to e3. Now a very beautiful tactic, just little moves later, rook caps on a4. Now if you want to go for a quick draw, how do you do this in this position? You play knight to f3, and here after rook to a3 check, king moves, and after rook caps on f3, you have this beautiful tactic, knight to g5 check, and here after this captures. It is still a draw even after your up a piece, because you have no pawns, and the game would have been ended there if Wei Yi had played the right set of moves. But here after f6, he played h3, and thinking that it was a draw, but it's not a draw, and now it comes to what it was supposed to come to. As I told you, you could always sacrifice the knight, f7, but now this comes rook to f1, trying to go for this, but now knight to g5. Just both knights are defending the pawn. This is coming, and it's just almost game over for Wei Yi. He played h2, knight g to f3, just cutting off the rook, and now comes this king to e7. King to e7 completely blunders the game. We have knight captures on h2, just grabbing that, and now just comes rook to a1. And now what do you do here? Just knight g to h4, rook to a3 check, king to e2, rook caps on a4, but now comes this knight to h6 that is defending. This is coming, queen is coming, there is nothing you can do. Rook to a2 check was played, but king to e3, rook to e3 check, king to e4, and it was on this move, on move 80. What a grind it was. On move 80, Gukesh got this victory for India, and India beat China 2.5 to 1.5 with this spectacular victory that Gukesh gave them. And really proud of you, Gukesh. I mean, this was a spectacular game, 80 moves grind, and winning it right by the edge of your seat. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll be covering rest of the games as well, so stay tuned to the channel, and yeah, just stay updated, and I'll be showing a lot of games. So see you guys very, very soon.